Derek, the community steward here at ETH Denver, aka SporkDAO. And I'm excited to bring you week 2 of our Front End Wednesdays series, where every Wednesday we learn front end development. Last week, we went into the React docs, the new version, the beta version, and we did their quick start. We got pretty far pretty fast. We finished the entire quick start, which means this week we are doing their tic-tac-toe tutorial. Tic-tac-toe tutorial. So whatever your background level is, whatever you know, whatever you don't know, you are welcome here, because we are going to go through it with a beginner's mind, as they say in Zen, and ask each other questions and help each other learn along the way. Just a moment while I make sure everyone knows we're doing this. Bada bing. Bada boom. Question. If you're here, say hi in the chat. I just want to make sure my mic's working, that chat's working. I haven't done too many of these streams, so it's all very useful calibration for me. Thank you in advance. Give me a little wave. I want to try a new trick this week. Let's see whether it works. Hi, Michael Forrest. Thank you. How you doing today? Hi, Brian Briggs. So I'm going to pull up some royalty-free music to test whether my new fancy trick works. Hi, Beam, which is piping audio in through my microphone, through like a fake virtual microphone kind of a thing. So let's see if I can get that going. In just a moment, we're going to come back to our React tutorial and do React tic-tac-toe. We're going to tic-tac-toe tutorial. But first, this. Here we go. Whoa, slow down. Audio. Mute. Okay, so my question is, can you hear this? Let's go. I did it. Hi, Merman1665. Is it Merman like merman? Like mermaid and merman? Because you spell it mer like Eugene Merman. This is called royalty-free intro music, folks. Week 2 of Front End Wednesdays, where we up the production value one royalty-free song at a time. Okay, it's we're going to get back into React, the beta docs, the tutorials. We're going to learn together because we want to go far, not fast. We are not going to go very fast. By the way, how are the audio, like how is the music level compared to my voice? The music's loud compared to me. All right, I'll bring it down 15%. how does the music compare to me now? This is very useful. As always, we are going to spend a couple minutes here at the top just getting tidy, getting setting the table. There, I brought it down like 20%. Great. Thank you, Ian. Voice is crisp. Michael, thank you. That's what we like to hear. This, by the way, is a cheap microphone. $80 on Amazon. The Q2U. Highly recommend the Q2U. USB out, XLR out. Easy upgrade path, however and whenever you want to get fancy with it. I just use the USB and it's good. It's good. That ASMR mic. Okay. So we have intro music now. I'm proud. Genuinely. I would play Spotify music in the background, but then the recordings would be muted, wouldn't they? Well, life is sad and hard. If anyone knows like royalty-free playlists I can use, let me know. Just put them in Discord. Go ping me and code along with Derek. Okay, let's get it started. Bada boom. Audio input. Great. And great. Goodbye. Goodbye. So, let's dig in. Welcome to the stream screen. Always the calibrating. If I'm like this, we do not gain anymore. Okay. I like having the chat up. What do y'all think? I think it's fun. But if I take it down, then we probably have more screen real estate. I want this to be collaborative. I have very few strong opinions on how we do this. Like, y'all are the people here. This is literally for you. So your opinion means a lot to me on everything from like what we're doing, how we're doing it, how it looks. I'm not here just to look at myself, even though I do enjoy that. I want this to be useful to you. So squeaky wheels, get your oil. Let me know what you need and what you want. Like, for example, is the text size big enough? Can you read this? If not, I will take chat away and have it take up more of the screen. I'm going to wait for any feedback on the text size before I move on. So put me out of my misery. It's good to see the screen when relevant. Text as small as you'd make it. Okay. I wonder if this is all going to be in the context of this window. If so, I'm just going to share this tab. Wouldn't go smaller. Thank you both. That means a lot. So let's redo the screen share real quick. We're just going to do the tab. Boom. Boom. Hi, Frankenmiller. Good to see you. Frankenmiller, you've been very active. And I also know that you've been doing a lot of front-end learning yourself, so I might lean on you for some support here when things get out of my knowledge base, which is now. So as a reminder of where we are, we did the quick start last week on our first Front-End Wednesday, and this is week 2 of Front-End Wednesday. Happy New Year, everyone. And since we finished the entire quick start section last time, this time we are going to pick up at the next chunk of the beta React docs, which is in the learn section, because I learn by doing. We're going to do their tic-tac-toe tutorial. Today is the tic-tac-toe tutorial. So we're going to build a small tic-tac-toe game. It does not assume any React knowledge, which is great because I don't have any. That's not entirely true. Last week we learned things like components, how to pass state up and down with props, how to use hooks because React is very opinionated on keeping track of state. And in exchange for doing things in a very specific way, you get all the superpowers of React updating state across your components when events happen. This is designed for people who prefer to learn by doing. If you want to learn them at a more conceptual level, you can go to their Describing the UI section, which is down here. But we're going to stay up here in the tic-tac-toe tutorial. Okay. So we got a few sections. Setup, overview, where we learned a couple things like components, props, and state. We're going to complete the game, and in the process of doing that, learn some super common techniques for React development. Hell yes. And then we're going to add time travel. Dope. So we can gain some deeper insight into the unique strengths of React. That's fun. I literally have no idea what that's alluding to. So let's begin. What are you building? If you would like to play along on your own computer, I'm going to paste this not only here for everyone to see, I'm also going to go put it in our Discord server, which is, of course, discord.gg/sporkdao, D-A-O, over in the Code Along with Derek channel in the Biddling category. It's there. If you would like to be in that server or in that category, but you're not, but you're not yet, just let me know. I'm here to help. Is there a recording from the last live stream? There is. That VOD should be up on Twitch and also YouTube, whichever you prefer to watch VODs from. This is live streaming to YouTube and Twitch at the same time. You can tell that because up over here on the chat on the side of the screen, it shows which platform people are writing in from. Uniting the Web 2 giants of YouTube and Twitch. Fun fact, also streaming this to Twitter. Weird, huh? Speaking of which, well, let's begin at the beginning. I'm going to beg you for help advertising this stream. That's my only ask of you today. Because I am a shameless shill. So that tweet, hello? Interesting. It didn't like that. Oh, it did post it though. Okay. So y'all can see it. Please go retweet that tweet and like it. It would mean the world to me. Beam me up now. You already did it. I appreciate you. Didn't even have to ask. The other 8 of you or so, help me out. I need your help. Your 10 followers, I would love for them to know. 100 followers, whatever it is, it means a lot. Moving on. Retweet. Like. Oh, a couple more. Oh, it was me. Sometimes I am dumb. That's fine. Oops. So here we go. What are we doing? In this tutorial, we're going to build an interactive tic-tac-toe game with React. Here is our goal. We're going to start with the end in mind, as they say in the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey. Here's where we're going. We're going to have 115 lines of code that produce this thing on the side. So we're going to click Go to Game Start. Oh, never mind. That's like a reset thing. So the player that's up right now is X. X can click somewhere, and it puts an X. Oh, this is the time travel thing. I see now. So like chess, it's keeping track of the moves on the side, and you can click each one. It also lets us time travel back to the future. We didn't lose track when we rewound. Very impressive. So we'll play tic-tac-toe. Bada boom, bada bing, bada boom, bada bing, bada bang. Boom, bop, bada bow. And now it's full. We can go back. We can go forward. We can go back. Can we change the course of history? We can. Very impressive. So that's our goal. A tic-tac-toe game has this next player thing that's updating, keeps track of the state on the board, also keeps track of the history here on the side. A lot of different stuff happening here. we're going to have a square function. That's each of the squares, each of the 9 squares. We have our board that's going to handle clicks. Winners. Let's see a winner. We all know that the secret to winning at tic-tac-toe is not to start in the middle. You start over here. And the other person gets cocky and goes in the middle. And that's where you pincer them. And they're like, what do I do? Shoot, boom. And you're like, ha, 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 boom. And then you hit them with 2 different. That's a winning play. If you go in the corner and they go in the middle, you have won, my friend. Just boom, winner X. So there's also this calculate winner thing happening. Good to know. Okay. And then this return, this is where we get into the JSX. We've got some divs for the different pieces, the status up on top, board row, squares 0, 1, 2, board row, then the next 3 squares, board row, okay. Export default function game. This looks like it's handling state at the high level. Handle play, interesting, okay. Jump to, that's what's happening over here on the side. And then this history, which is itself a map of the squares. Oh man, this is already complex enough that I'm going to need to take it one piece at a time. This is not obvious to me at a glance what all these are doing. Excited. And, okay, what is this? This is in the context of which? Great, I've lost track of everything. Fantastic. We have some more JSX. Why is there a second return? I'm confused. It must be in a different function. Then we have calculate winner. Oh, here are the different winning patterns. If very interesting. That's how we keep track of who the winner is with all the different ways you can win, like top row, second row, diagonals, and so on. Return null. Hilarious. Okay, let's learn. If the code doesn't make sense to you yet, or if you're unfamiliar with the code syntax, don't worry. Truly do not worry. That's the whole point. Like I used to say when I was a high school teacher, it'd be weird if you knew all this stuff, because then why would you be here learning it? It makes sense to be confused and overwhelmed along the way. That's the whole point of learning. It's very natural. Let's understand it better, though, one piece at a time. So we checked it out. A numbered list to the right, yes. The history we saw. We're going to start simpler. Great. Let's get set up. So we've got our code editor here. We're going to click Fork to open it in a new tab using Code Sandbox. This will be my first time with Code Sandbox. I happen to know that Frankenmiller, I think you shared your Code Sandbox over in the server recently. Is that right? So we're going to write code in our browser and then see on the side, it updates in real time, gives you a little side-by-side, super useful. Let's try it out. Fork. Well, I am just screen sharing in the wrong way then, aren't I? I should be sharing the whole window. There we go. So this is our Code Sandbox. Great. So how does our app begin? We export default function square, which has no input parameters and no logic, and returns in JSX a button. Here's the open tag, here's the close tag, and then inside in between them is this text that can be anything, like text. Oh, does some interesting wrapping there because it's a button and it has opinions about how it's going to be styled. So this button has class name square. That's where the styling is happening over in styles.css. I imagine if I look for square, sure enough, we have our CSS. If you're anything like me, CSS is currently overwhelming, so we're going to stop looking at the CSS. It's just important to acknowledge that it exists over in a different place, and we have our app over here, and the magic for the styling is happening there. We could convince ourselves we're on our way to learning CSS by changing the text color. Where's text color happening? Text align, color. Huh. What's CSS for text? Well, it's a good thing we are keeping track of things with our good old-fashioned bookmarks from last time. Web dev. I just want to change the color of the text. Where did the CSS? Oh no, this is a course. Dang it, CSS change text color. Like I said, if you want to go fast, go alone. There it is, W3 schools. That's what I was thinking of from last time. Color. All right. Somebody give me a hex color or just a color by name. Anything's fine, or an RGB. After you do that, I will go update it. So for my placeholder, I'm going to say white because that's going to be such chaos. It is going to make it so we can't even see it. Somebody help me fix it. I've made a critical bug, and I don't have a CI/CD pipeline to check for things like this. So I'm going to leave it like that, which is to say broken, until somebody tells me what color to change it to. Back over in the app. So we've got our square, which is itself the square. Let's move on. Note, you can also follow along in your own development environment. That's fun. I'm going to go ahead and continue to use Code Sandbox for now. But, of course, you could be coding in your own IDE, such as VS Code. Let's try a couple examples of colors that y'all gave me. Thank you very much for playing along. So, first up, we have black. Cool, this thing has Emmet. And we could also, hello? What? Amazing? I'm a huge fan of that. But let's try doing, how about boom, FA 538F. Ah, a little red. Nice little accent. I'll go with Beam suggestion. And then we'll use background border. We'll change our border to Frankenmiller suggestion. Just for a stronger, yes, better contrast. There we go. Let's get an overview of React. So let's get oriented to Code Sandbox. We have three main sections. Files on the left, a file directory. This is our, if it were on your computer, this is all in the folder of the project, and these are all files and folders in that folder. The most important one for us right now is app.js. We also have index.js. We can look at our own code. We also have index.js, package.json, and styles.css. This is a little quiz for everyone. Frankenmiller, how would you describe what index.js does? What's like a 1 or 2 liner for what it does in the context of a React code base? Or this specific one? Beam, could you give me a 1 or 2 liner on what package.json does, either in general or in the context of this code base, for folks who are not familiar with it? And while y'all do that, I will do my best to explain index.html over in the public folder. This is some HTML hypertext markup language that it looks like just the head and just the body. Okay. So it's a pretty concise version of the HTML for the entire document. It's in the English language. We've got a header that helps the browser know what it's looking at. And then we've got a body that has one main div with the ID root. I think inside root, all the magic happens. This is the layer of abstraction. That's where everything else that's happening goes. Yes, root. Sure enough. So here's where root actually is. Index.html is like, I'm just a header. You want to see what actually happens? Go over to wherever root is, which is index.js. And while I hope you're doing your homework, I need your help with this because I'm not as smart as I seem. Styles.css, I mentioned a moment ago, is where all of the styling, the color, the spacing, the padding, the fonts happen for all the different parts of the website, written in CSS. Merman is giving us the high-level relationship between these pieces. HTML is like the noun, what? CSS is the adjective, like in what way, how? And JavaScript is the verb, like what does it do? I've also heard a clumsy analogy of like skeleton, muscle, and skin. CSS is probably skin. HTML is probably skeleton. And JavaScript is probably muscle in that situation. Like JavaScript does things. CSS is how it looks, the skin on the outside. And then HTML is the skeleton. Like you have your main div and so on to like provide some structure for the pieces. Thank you for that, Merman. So that's our code base. Part 2, the code editor. That's over here. I'll go ahead and close some of the tabs here in our code editor. And 3, the browser. This is our preview over here on the side, browser, where it's showing us in real time, very much like your computer's browser. I'm using Brave browser. We have a simulated browser here inside the tab. Closing our loop. Beam Me Up Now says the package.json tracks packages used in your project. For example, a few of our dependencies are the React package, the React DOM. Oh, what's a DOM? Document Object Model. At least I know what it stands for, even if I don't know what that means. And React scripts. We're using all of these things. They will be very useful to us. So we need to import them so that our code base knows what the heck we mean when we say use this part of React. Well, first we have to have React. That's what package.json's doing. Cool. And then we have our index.js, where Frankenmiller is explaining it's where we import the dependencies. So a moment ago we saw package.json is where we declare them, and here's where we use them. For example, React, React DOM. Oh, and then /styles.css. Dot is a shorthand meaning in this folder, like wherever index.js is. Dot means same place. Go to the file styles.css. So wherever this is, look in that same folder for something called styles.css. Oh, sure enough, it's right here. And then for these other ones, we're importing them not from inside the folder, but from a package manager that lets us go grab them from somewhere else, wherever the React package is being handled, for example. It's where we import our dependencies, importing everything from app.js and running it as importing everything from app.js, and running it as app. No, running it as, there we go, app. Thank you. It's a simple document, no need to do much except import extra CSS files as one adds them. So if we write CSS somewhere besides styles.css, we'll need to explicitly import that up at the top here later. Great. So very much like index.html says, hey, I'm just going to sit here. I'm a little bit of boilerplate. Whatever's happening in root, that's the action. Go talk to that file. And then you go over to index.js where root is happening, and root in index.js is like, hey, don't look at me. I'm just a little bit of boilerplate. I grab the pieces, I put them together so that we're able to use them all. But honestly, all the magic happens here in app. You're like, okay, where's app? Oh, it's in this folder. It's this thing called app. I'm surprised we don't have to label it .js. We had to label this one .css. Is that a thing in JavaScript that you don't need to label them .js? That's wild. Okay, sure. But that's where all the magic happens. So then you go over to app.js, which is where we're actually being more specific. What is this app? Well, we have our first function, square, which is a button. Where did it go? Okay. Why did it disappear? Moving on. We're oriented. I like slow and steady. Is this useful? Like, I don't want to assume anybody knows anything because that would make an ass out of you and me. I want to be crystal clear because one of the problems with this, like, learn by doing, especially if you're jumping to like, I know a little bit of JavaScript, I'm just going to start learning React, is you're doing like create React app or forking some kind of other existing code base, right? And you just inherit all this stuff. And if you don't have this kind of intuitive sense of what each piece in the code base that you're inheriting or forking or like joining an existing project, you have to know what's already there before you can know how to add to it. So we've already answered an important question, which is like, if I want to make a change to this app, where do I do that? The answer is not index.html or index.js or package.json or styles.css. The answer is for some of the pieces, but mainly you would edit app.js. Out of this entire file base, our attention is only on app.js right now, with a few exceptions we'll get to. So I think that's why I wanted to spend 5 minutes talking about what files already exist so you can know how they play together, and more importantly, that you're allowed to ignore them because you know what they do and that's not where the action is. Okay, so this code is a component. Can we make this bigger? I wish I could collapse this sidebar. Feedback. So our app.js creates a component. That's a piece of reusable code that's a part of the user interface. Our reusable component here is a square. We are going to reuse it for a total of 9 times to have the 9 squares of our board. In React, components are used to render, manage, and update UI elements. Render like display, and then as people interact with the components, change them. Like on Twitter, when you click the heart, it does a little animation, it turns red, it updates the number. Component. What's going on here? First line. That's a function we're defining called square. What does export mean? It makes it accessible outside of the file. If we didn't write export, then the other file, index.js, would not be able to reference that function. What does default mean? It tells the other files that use this code that it's the main function. You can only have one default. You can't have 2 functions both have the default keyword. Up next, this line. There's a return for this function. There was no logic before it. You call this function, it immediately returns something. Specifically, it returns this as a value to whoever called it. Usually another function is calling it and getting something back as the return, or as the output, or as the value. That button there in those, Beam, help me out. What are alligator things really called? Angle brackets? I'm so proud. You taught me something last week and I remembered. That's a JSX element. JSX is where we smash together JavaScript and HTML. It looks like HTML with the angle bracket, but it's powered up with the magic of React. Class name square is a button property or prop that tells CSS how to style the button. Wait, that's a prop? Uh-oh. That confused me that is also called prop. I thought props were also the input parameters. As in when we pass state up and down, those are also props. Is this the same as that? Because this syntax does not look the same as that. Am I crazy? X is just some text. That could be literally any text. And then we close the button JSX tag. Great. We already talked about styles.css, but we might mention that the first two CSS selectors, asterisk, which means everything, right? All? Am I wrong? I don't know CSS very well. And also the body selector define the style of large parts of the app, while something like .square defines the style of any component that has the class name property set equal to square. Do we do that? Yes. The class name is explicitly set to square. Beam answers my question. CSS property, which the tutorial is explicitly abbreviating as a prop. Very rude. So one meaning of the word prop is CSS property for how to style something. And that's what it's called. How is it written? What's the syntax? You go class name equals and then whatever. The word square is arbitrary. What's important about the word square is that over in our styles.css, we also have something called square, and then we define what that means. So the word square does not exist in CSS. We created it. Then we put all these things that do exist in CSS inside of it. I like to distinguish as I'm learning things between what is like the actual built-in syntax of the language, HTML, CSS, or JavaScript, or React, versus what are like arbitrary names of things. Because if it's an arbitrary, like square, we could do that. There's no reason we can't do that. It's a completely arbitrary name. Square does not mean something in CSS. That's an important distinction to me. I don't know if it is to you. Okay. Great. Index.js. It's classic tutorial thing. We had a conversation about what the files mean, and then the very next thing in the tutorial was what do the files mean. So I think we're on the right track. If the conversations we're having are what they were about to say anyway, it means like our head's in the right place. Check out index.js. We will not be editing it at all, but it's a bridge between the component you create in app.js and the web browser. Okay, we already talked about the importing stuff. We didn't talk about them in detail yet. Let's look at them. Lines 1 through 5 over in index.js. Lines 1 through 5. We bring our pieces together. React here we import. Specifically, we're only using the strict mode. What would I call this? Module function from React. When you like destructure the thing you're importing and only grab a piece of it, my understanding is that's to save on the size. Like instead of importing all of React, we're only grabbing the strict mode thing. So we're only allowed to use the strict mode thing from all of React. We could import other things later, but for now we've only explicitly declared that we want the strict mode thing. I don't know what the correct word for thing is in this context. Like module? React's library to talk to the web browser. Okay, that's React DOM/client. Great. Styles for your components. Yup. And also whatever is going on in app.js. So this is bringing together the different pieces. The remainder of the file brings the pieces together and injects the final product into index.html in the public folder. As we said before, brings the pieces together. We got a root that uses all of the fancy create root stuff coming right out of how React talks to the browser and renders it according to strict mode, which we import up here. And what is it rendering? App. What is app? It's whatever's in here. And then it passes this over as root here in the index.html. So a couple layers of abstraction, a little bit of boilerplate meant to make our life easy, so we don't have to think about this HTML. We don't have to think about bringing all these pieces together. All we have to think about with our clean little 3 lines of code is what is the app? What are we showing on the screen? And we are making it piece by piece, specifically component by component. Let's keep going. Let's get back to app.js, where we'll spend the rest of the tutorial. Right now, our board's only 1 square, but we need 9. If you just try and copy paste your squares to make 2 squares, in other words, we had return button and then we closed it. And then if you try to do another one right after, you'll get this error. Let's produce that error. Copy. And then right after it, paste. Error. Adjacent JSX elements must be wrapped in an enclosing tag. Did you want a JSX fragment with the opening and closing and some stuff in the middle? Somewhat useful. This is React. It is not Rust. It's not going to tell us everything. It did make a little bit of a suggestion, like, hey, did you want a JSX fragment instead? But I'm going to need a little more explanation of what's going on here. So React components, our current component is square, need to return a single JSX element and not multiple adjacent ones, like 2 buttons. To fix that, though, you can use fragments to wrap multiple adjacent JSX elements. Okay. Let's try that out. Can I hide this? Can I hide this? Yes. Can I make that smaller? Yes. Okay. Let's give ourselves some more room to breathe. Bada boom. Bada bing. Let's semicolon these babies. Okay. So here's what I think it means. Open this empty thing. Close. Make it easier to look at. What did I mess up? Unreachable code. Did not like that. How is that fundamentally different? Let's see if I'm understanding. If I take this one away. Really? What's so different? Let's go back to how we started. Okay. So this is fine. This is not fine. I can't do new line. I just literally can't do a new line. Bare return? What do you mean, Beam? How about I go boom? Okay. Okay. So I needed to have that on the line with return. Okay. We're rocking, we're rolling. So that was the piece I didn't know. Ta-da. Oh, and we don't need these. Beautiful. For those that didn't catch it, we had these little semicolons showing up over here, and that's where Derek learned you do not need to do semicolons at the end of your lines in JSX. The only reason this didn't work is because return, as Beam Me Up Now says, was bare. It's a bear. So I need to have something on the same line as return, and that's good enough. This is ugly, and that's okay. I hit save, and here's how it fixed it. That was a beautiful little trick. I appreciated that trick. Okay, so this is where we are. I said this is ugly. The reason I said it's ugly is the thing that opens it, the things that are inside of it were indented before it, and that's not usually how things go. It would make more sense for it to be something like this. Okay. Bop, 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 bop. Okay. In order to do that, all I have to do is wrap the whole thing in parentheses. And that's good enough. And now everything can be spaced like you'd expect. our opening curly brace, our closing curly brace, our opening parenthesis, our closing parenthesis, our opening empty tag, our closing empty tag, and the 2 buttons inside of it. Are we good so far? Y'all, truly ask questions if any of this is like, but I don't understand why. Like, why didn't you need the semicolons? Or what is the parentheses doing? Or what are the curly braces doing? All of these are totally good questions to ask. This is day 2 of us doing this stuff. You're supposed to have questions. Is anybody watching this just because it's fun and you already know all this? Like that would be chaos to me. Why would you do that? All right. So we're gods now. On the Dunning-Kruger chart, we figured out how to go around React's opinion about only being able to have 1 component per function. And we used an empty tag to make 2 components happen from the same export default function. So we went from to I know everything. We are now gods of web design. And we're going to keep going. And it's only uphill from here. Is that right? Yes. We're going to know more than everything soon. Okay, so we used a fragment. My question is fragment always an empty open and close like this? Is that exactly what fragment means? Or are there other things that mean fragment? And we did that. Bada boom, bada bing. Great. Okay, copy paste, get them in a line. Not in a grid. We'll need to group our squares into rows with divs and add some CSS classes. While we're at it, we'll give each square a number to make sure we know where each square is displayed. In app.js, we're going to update the square component. So we need 3 rows. And we're going to make divs. I want to get as far as we can without looking at how they do it. So let's make a div. Let's make this one have 3 buttons. And then let's take this and paste it. I expect them to show up as side-by-sides. And we play the same game. So there needs to be an open tag for the whole thing. And likewise to close the whole thing. That's fine. Let's save. Sure enough. Great. Okay. And this is what it means by we need some CSS to tell it that this thing, I want it to be like row, right? And then I want my CSS to have something like board row after. Board row? Apparently we're going to call it board row. That's fine. Oh, the CSS was already there. Cheater. Cheater. So after board row, let's look at how many things are board row to learn what we're cheating and inheriting. Oh, just this. So after board row, we get clear. Which sides of an element's boxes may not be adjacent to an earlier floating box? Oh, so we're telling it that both the left and right side of the box may not be adjacent to a previous box. Is the first row next to a previous box? No. Is the second one adjacent to a previous box? Yes. And so because the answer was yes, clear triggers and is like, hell no, put that on a new line. Clear is taking care of this new line thing for us. Content. Does it break if we don't have this? This doesn't seem useful. It does break. What is content? Determines which page-based occurrence of a given element is applied to a counter or string value. I might have to go into the MDN for that. Display with float and position determines the type of box or boxes that are generated for an element. Okay. Hey, real quick, am I lagging out? Tell me yes or no. Okay, good. Thank you, Beam. My video did freeze though, right? Silly video. Huh. Silly. Display. Table. Yeah, I'm really curious about this content thing. Because, oops, I went to display. Content. The content CSS property replaces an element. There we go. With a generated value. Replaces an element. Objects inserted using content are anonymous replaced elements. Okay, but we did an empty content string. Why does that result in a new line? You know what I mean? Before. Yeah, so confused. Huh. Oh, I have an idea. There we go. Huh. I see. So what we're doing is using CSS to put something right after each board row. A board row, of course, is a made-up thing which has 3 buttons in it. And after each board row, we are putting something, empty string. And the empty string, I guess I'll call this full string. So the string, in other words, the sentence or phrase that you can write with letters, or numbers or characters or emojis. Let's throw an emoji in there for fun. Sure. Great. So it's putting whatever this phrase is right after each board row, and then the next row starts. So it's making the line break so that it can write whatever we put, including if we put nothing. It still does the line break and writes the nothing, and then the next row starts right underneath that. Very weird trick. Not a very intuitive way of using CSS to just like make 2 things on different lines. To me, this is like kind of a hack that's ugly, but good enough. Moving on. So we've got our 2 rows. Let's add 1 more and save. And how'd we do? Coach. Give each square a number to make sure we know where each square is displayed. Okay. We added the CSS class. Okay. Let's reverse engineer what these squares are. Do they have a name or anything? H5, H1. No, they don't. So I'm going to make up a name knowing that we're probably about to change it. Class name. So we can give these different class names. Would it be here? Something like class name equals... Well, that would be for styling. I don't want to style the buttons differently. I need to give them not a class name, but something like an ID. Is that a thing? React.html attributes. Looks like a thing. So I could call it 1, or I could call it square1 or SQ1. This is a made-up nomenclature of which there are going to be 9 of these. In fact, this is computer science. We don't start counting at 1, do we? 0. I'm going to go for ID 0, check how they do it, and then finish writing the other 8. class name square. Yep, we did our divs with the board rows. Huh. Give each square a number. Oh, that's a very temporary thing. I completely misunderstood. Instructions unclear. 1. Yay! Okay, let's just do that, even though this is definitely temporary. Just so we confirm everything is behaving the way we expect. All right. Great job. It's important to be encouraging to yourself. The CSS defined in styles.css styles the divs with the class name of board row. Now that we've grouped them, we have our board. But now we have a problem. Your component isn't really a square. Our main component up here, the export default function, it was called square, but we've done so much to it, it's not very accurate to call it square anymore. Let's update its name to board. This is the entire board. That changed none of how it displays. This is just how the pieces of React talk to each other. In fact, the fact that changing it here didn't break it is because it's a default function. And over in index.js, it's just doing whatever the default thing is out of app. We're not saying import board from app, which I guess would be like this. Help me out, team. Did I not save? Okay, we do define board. Is this not a thing? What am I getting wrong? Undefined. Board is undefined. How is board undefined in app? It's right here. Am I spelling it wrong? Board. What? Does anyone know why it's not working? That's crazy. All right. Never mind the example I was saying. How about this? Import board from app. Let's go. Okay, the syntax was not correct. Did not need the curly braces. So we could be explicit and import board from app. But here's what is not obvious. This could be any name. It's not grabbing whatever we're grabbing out of app by name. It's grabbing whatever the default is out of app and then giving it a new name here. We are correctly grabbing the default function, which is called board in the context of the file, but this doesn't care about that. It's just grabbing whatever the default function is and then giving it a new name here. This syntax is a little misleading. We're not importing any name. There's no any name over in /app. We're calling whatever the default is any name, a name we're making up right here. Oh, it's called an alias. Cool. So might as well call it app. Even though there's no function in here in app.js called app, we're going to call it app. I think that's cool. Because again, it's an example of an arbitrary thing. It did not need to be called app. Cool. Yep, we got our board, we got our squares. It's okay to copy paste code from this page. Yeah, I agree with them. Muscle memory is important here, actually. Like, it'll help us retain this information better. Passing data through props, not to be confused with CSS props. Don't get confused. CSS props or properties like square are how things are styled. Data props are a different thing we're about to see. So we're going to want to change the value of the square from empty to X when the user clicks on the square. But we don't want to have to put that logic in every single square. Could we write that logic somewhere else and then have the fact that it's just like import it somehow to each of the 9 components, each of the 9 square components. Is it still correct to call them components when they're inside like that? Pay the toll. Do you need a hug? I'll hug you. Come find me at ETH Denver. I will actually hug you. I love hugs. But the only way to change that value is to import kindness from heart, or to import help from friend. I'm here for you if you want to talk. Also, what's up, Paul? Good to have you. Okay. That's your kindness for the day. I know it's not much, but I hope it's something. Okay, let's do it. I do not know where we're going. And in fact, I don't want us to be super different. This ID thing, we'll see if something like that comes up as a pattern later. For now, we're going to leave it out. Okay, component architecture. Yeah, my question for the team is still, is it fair to call all of these, is board the only thing that's technically a component? Or is it also true that the whole thing is a component, each row is a component, and each button is a component? In other words, is a component the function, the whole board, or is a component anything in these JSX tags? Which one of the two is a more accurate definition of a component? Please tell me. Square. So we're going to refactor our code. We've repeated ourselves so much. We're going to take a moment now that we've increased the complexity of our app and refactor what we already have. Function square above export default function board. Let's do it. Function square. Cool. I wonder if we could return a button. And it'll be empty at first. Okay. Okay. So button, let's make this X for a second. So here's my question. Can we, instead of doing all this, just do square like that? He's learning React. He's learning React. Okay. So Beam, is it correct we now have 2 components, one called square, one called board, and a component is a thing that is a named function? The named part maybe not necessarily true, but these are not components here. These are just like JSX inside of a component called board. Okay, so that's how you do square. And we're done. Bada boom, bada bing. Ha ha! Feels good, man. Bada boom, bop, beep, bop, boom, bada bang. Yes, but even this feels a bit redundant, right? Shouldn't there be a row component that we just call 3 times? I don't know. More than one way to build a board. So now, if we want to update what's inside any particular square, we can do it in one place. And now we have achieved the principle of DRY, D-R-Y. Don't repeat yourself. We only needed to explain what a square is one time. And that way, if we want to update how it works or how it looks later, the way it previously was, class name square was in 9 places. And if we updated that later to like squarebox, we would have had to update it 9 places. As it is now, hello? Oh, that's the default. I was like, who's Squarebox? Why does it have that styling? We can just update it in this one place. Specifically, my guess from the instructions we just got, we're going to receive some kind of data. What are we calling it? Prop. And we're going to display that here. open bracket. Now we've shifted gears into JSX. Prop, that's a variable name. And I want it to display. For example, let's do a placeholder, const prop equals the string x. Nope, this is React. This would have to be passed in right here. So close. So close. Come on, you can do it. How do I pass state? How do I pass state? Oh yeah, you can't just, yeah, it's so opinionated. Square, but how does the square know? But how does it know? And where would I put this? Hey, we're in TypeScript. All right. Let's see. That's a little bit of a guess. I like leaving a little bit of a guess before we go back to our tutorial. Okay, we brought up all our squares, bada boom, and now in the board we do square. Div, why are the colors different? I don't like that the colors are different. Okay. Okay. Okay, let's be clear. There are two kinds of things that go in between the angle brackets. Lowercase stuff is an HTML attribute. If it starts with a capital letter, that's a React component. That difference is how it knows to display it in a different color. That's the only way it knows. Right? It's an important distinction. An arbitrary one, but an important one. It's a convention they've chosen. Okay, they all say 1. We do props. Value, we're calling it value. Update the square component to read the value prop we're going to pass in from board. Check. Sure, we'll call it value, no problem. No problem. My question is, how do we pass it from board? Do we do it here? No, let's call it value. Square. Value. Value? Why are we guessing? Show me how to do it. Square, value, value. Oh, you could... No. Right. We all know it's not like that because that's the word value. That's just text. Go away. Hi, where did everything go? Great. No, we do not want that, of course. Change it back. It's JSX. We're going to need those curly braces. All right. Strong start. 2, this is the phrase they use, escape into JavaScript from JSX. JSX is basically HTML. Like as far as what kinds of things you're doing, you're like adding buttons and writing text and writing divs and giving them class names to style them. You're writing like you would a normal web page in many ways with the language of HTML and CSS with small changes where you say like class name instead of, I think, class. But to escape into JavaScript and boom, be able to do logic right there inside the same place where you're writing the display logic, you could do like data processing. We just use a curly brace to let it know, hey, JavaScript is about to happen. Interpret it that way instead. Like, if you write 1 + 1 here, that's a phrase, like a string, 1 + 1. But if we put little curly braces around it, it does JavaScript inside. 1 + 1 is 2. And it's doing an anonymous function, adding these together, and then outputting the result 2, and then putting that in the button. Great. Value equals. And now we know our magic words. We know the incantation to do to please the React gods. Value equals. Let's try it out. Value equals 1. And we've done it. This is actually a huge checkpoint. Come on, camera. We have created a component called board, which itself has a little bit of, fragments and divs to kind of categorize things. But more importantly, 9 squares. Those squares are themselves now components. We just made that square component up here. And here's the important part. When we create this particular square, this is the first square, in addition to creating it, we are also passing state by going value equals 1. This value equals 1 bit is being shoved into the input of the square function. The component is receiving whatever is written there. Question, is this a named thing? If I called it Weilu, it wouldn't work. The names have to match because there might be different things like value and value 2. You might pass in several things. And if you pass in several things, you might display one or the other or both. The names have to match. And the reason the names have to match is that it does this by name, not by order they were put. Even though value 2 is first, and we import value first, it's doing it by name. Value 2 is checking against the name value 2, and then doing that. Switch it back around. Bada bing, bada boop, bop, beep, boop, bang, bop, bing, boop, boop. Great. And now we're heroes. I do not want to do all 9. That seems useless. Great. Value. Value. Great. Interactive. We don't want it to just display these numbers. Camera, I'm going to have a conversation with you later. Let's fill the square component with an X when you click it. Let's make a new function called handleClick inside of the square component. Then we're going to add the onClick to the props of the button. Okay, so this is a lot of stuff, and it's all going in the square component. One sec. So frustrating. Hello down there. You're my other camera. Good enough. Continuing. Okay. Declare a function called handleClick inside of the square. Inside of square, before return, we need a function called handleClick. Okay. And then we return a button that has the class name square, but it also has onClick. Add onClick to the props of the button, to the props of the button JSX element. That's a noun, button JSX element, returned from the square component. So we're going to log out that we clicked, just to convince ourselves it works. And then we return a button, and right after class name, we're going to put onClick. And what happens on click? handleClick. Let's rearrange this a little bit. I'm going to do it like this for now. Rude. Okay, just going to do it like that for a moment. So we're still returning a button, but we've changed one thing about this button. It has a new prop. Not prop as in state, but prop as in property. And that prop is onClick. We did not define onClick. OnClick comes out of the box from React.DOM attributes. And wait, React.DOM attributes.onClick. If it's there, then React.mouse event handler. This is ternary, right? This is like super concise if then. Like if onClick happens, nothing else do this thing. Huh. We're getting good. Thank you, Beam. Okay, I just like digging really under the hood, but it's enough to say onClick is a thing we get from React that handles clicks, and it's smart enough to know when clicks happen. We don't have to explain what a click is. That's, if you know nothing else, that's good enough. But we have to tell it what to do when a click happens. What we do is some custom code with this custom function handle click, which could have been named anything. Handle click. Oops. Nope, never mind. Delete it in post. Handle clicks. Why? I'm not highlighting the whole thing. There we go. Handle clicks. Arbitrary function name is what I'm saying. Don't clip that, please. So we go back. You know me. I always like to clarify. Is it important that we write onClick? Because if we write onClicks, the whole thing breaks. onClicks is not a thing. onClicks is coming out of React. And we need to call, onClick is coming out of React. And we need to call it exactly by name. Whereas handle click is a thing we totally made up. We could call it handle clicky part. And that would be fine. It's made up. Let's check out our console. Bada bing. And now we check. If we click, it worked. Does it work for all buttons? You bet. Click, 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 click. And now we play a mini game. Clicking. Back when I was a high school teacher, which is definitely on the Derek bingo board. You can mark out that square on bingo. Very common game people would play is click a thing fast. Like if I was a physics teacher, so if I gave out like a tool, like a stopwatch, they would just like click it as fast as possible, or like some kind of like counter to count how many times something happened. They'd just be like, how fast can I get to 999? Just like so aggressive. I think it's in human nature. Okay. Let's stay official since I've made my point. Great. Great. Save, a little bit of formatting. Lovely. Goodbye, console. Lovely. Yep. Great. Yep. Great. Remember it got clicked and fill it with an X mark. Now we're going to do state. Components use state to remember things. This is a React way of saying keep track of variables and what values they have. That's all state is. What are the values of the variables? React makes you write things in a very specific way. You can't just go declaring a variable and then setting its new value like you would expect in JavaScript. No. The hardest part of learning React at first for me has been how very specific the syntax is for simply updating the value of a variable. But we're going to get some practice with that right now. So React gives us this special function called useState that you can call from within the component to let it remember things. In other words, to update the value of some variable. So first, we need to have that variable exist. It currently exists as a thing that is created right here, passed in right here, and displayed like this. Let's have two of them. That's fun. Lovely. So now, first we need to import useState from React here at the top of the file. Good to know. Seems like the kind of thing I'll mess up later. Import use state. I wonder actually if I can be more clever than that. Hello? Import React from React? Nope. So here's my question. Nope. Yes. Okay. So auto-completing is one of the great superpowers of software engineering because between packages you've imported, Emmet, GitHub Copilot, there are all kinds of ways that your development environment will provide you autocompletes to try and make your life a little easier. Not just so you don't have to type as much, but mainly so you don't have to type as much. Also for when you forget stuff and you kind of half remember it. So here I've already told it I'm going to import something from React. And so as I'm typing what that something is, it's checking all the things inside React. And it's like, okay, did you want is it any of these that start with the word use, dude? This box means package. It's purple, just like the React package is purple. Hi, Tyler. Gonna leave that up for a little while. That's nice. Frankenmiller is saying, this autocomplete feature of development environments also makes code more accurate, specifically less errors. If you're letting the autocomplete tell you what name to use, unless you're using autocomplete blindly, then you're probably using the correct spelling or version of something. So use state from function react.useState. Oh, it is a module. So we're importing the useState module from React, from the React package. Where are we going to use it? How about inside of each square component, we're going to create our value. And then we learned last week that this is the syntax for keeping track of state. But because we're keeping track of it error. Well, I'm pretty sure we need to keep track of it here because otherwise we would need to keep track of it outside, and then we would need to have different names for all of them, which might be true, but that doesn't feel like it's about to be true. Cannot access set value before initialization. Hello? I'm probably wrong. All right. Null. It is inside square, and it's null. Set value should be use state. Set, Oh, I see. Click. Hand click. Okay. We're getting there. Frankenmiller, you might have to elaborate. I'm not sure what your advice is here. Import use state. Check. Remove the value prop from the square component. Did we do that? Yes, we did. Line 4 you're talking about. Thank you for being specific. Boom. Set value should be use state. Makes your code more accurate with less errors. Autocomplete. Thank you, Frankenmiller. If you want to go far, go together. Thank you for being here. Oh my God, we're so good. Let's go. And we can get rid of these. Let's absolutely go. Okay. Bop. But can we uncheck it? No, we cannot. We need some logic. Well, we don't really need to uncheck it, not in the context of the game. When you're making design choices, make sure they're in the context of the goal that you have, not just arbitrary design choices like, well, should you be able to uncheck it? No. That's not how tic-tac-toe works. We're flying. Boom. Bap. Bada boom. Yep. We removed value. Yes, we did. Now we change handle click. We can take out the console log, of course. Great. I'm realizing this is basically VS Code or what? Like as far as keyboard shortcuts. Okay. Our square component now keeps track of its own state using the use state, I want to say hook, from React that we just imported. It initializes the value of the value variable to null. It could be initialized to anything, such as the number 1 written as a string, or the number 11 written as a string, or the word none. No, none. No, none. Or an empty string, which is very different from null, which is very different from the value 0. All of these are valid, which is very different from 1. Oh, JavaScript. Undefined. That's all that's fine. They chose null. Sure. It could also be empty. Is that null? How do I find out? I don't know how to console log. Console.log value. Ha! Undefined. It initializes it as undefined. Can one of the mods time out Tyler? He's spamming emotes in the chat. Okay, so if you don't put anything here, it's undefined. This is JavaScript. We're going to make it null instead of undefined for reasons I cannot explain. Thank you, Tyler. Handle click. Oh, God, what was it before? Set value to X, of course. Great. Doing great, folks. By calling this set function, it sets it to X. And here's the beauty of React. Here's the reason we're doing React in the first place. In one fell swoop, we make it so that when we click the square, onClick is like, whoa, whoa, whoa. Somebody clicked a thing. I got to do something. What was I supposed to do again? Oh, yeah, that handle click function they wrote. How does that go again? Set value. Oh, yeah, I'm React. That's how I update the state of my value variable. What am I going to set it to? Oh, the string capital X. All right, let's update the value variable from null to capital X for whichever square was clicked. And then here's the fun part. Not only does it update the value behind the scenes, it also re-renders the component so that it will display that new value. Now, maybe that's obvious to you, but it would have taken more lines of code to do this without React. This specific set it to be a new value. Well, we could do that on click. Wait, is onClick out of React? Oh, yeah. So onClick is just out of React. We would have needed some more vanilla JavaScript to handle that. And then we would have needed some logic to display the new value for the display, like to trigger like, yo, somebody should update this. Hey, I'm the one updating the value. Hey, anyone using this value, you should probably update whatever you look like because the value just changed. And that's a really snappy user experience to have it show up the second the thing changes. So I just want to admire, like, for all the pain of having to handle state and variables in this very specific way, we gain updating what the app looks like in a very easy, natural way when the values change. Specifically, when we're interacting with them to change the value. When we click, value updates, and we re-render the component so we can see the new value. Superpower. Note that each square has its own state. We did not have to give them 9 different variable names. I find that crazy. I still don't understand the way it's like scope and closure, right? The scope of this value only exists inside of this function. And so once you go outside of the function, this value is not being like returned. It's not being exported. It's being replaced right here with whatever the value is, x. And then it's just being returned like as an x up at the board component level. So these 9 squares each have a variable value inside, but they don't see each other. So they're not like, but that one's called value. Should I update when that one turns to x? No, it's inside the component. If you want to learn more about that, look up scope and closure. Intermediate JavaScript concept that is easy to overlook. When you call a set function in a component, React automatically updates the child components inside of it too. Interesting. So anything inside of it, but not out, not any parent components. I guess you would have to have the state at the highest level, like in your tree of components. It would have to be handled at the highest one where you wanted other stuff. Yeah, we saw that last week. Like if you did want it where when you click one square, other squares change. Like for example, if you wanted them all to flash briefly, the flash thing would need to get handled up at the board level or higher. And then the state would be passed down as a prop. After you're made, whoa. Beta docs. Is this like, here, let's be really annoying for a second. Do these docs exist as a code base? Where was I? Okay, we're about here. Great. Darn, I wanted to like make a pull request to update that. Credit to anyone that can figure out how we would do that, because I want to help contribute. These docs are really useful. Your code will look like this. Set value. Great. We have it. Moving on. Click. React Developer Tools. React DevTools. Different than the console, lives in the same place. React DevTools lets you check the props and the state of your React components. You can find React DevTools tab at the bottom of the browser section. Let's check it out. React DevTools. Here we have our board. It's highlighting the whole thing. Interesting, it goes all the way out. And we have each of the squares. Interesting, it's not highlighting them. Oh, super weird. Okay. Oh, look, it has the state inside. State. Why is... These squares are not... There's way more than 9 here. What the hell's happening? What is going on? Okay, this is 9. They should all have state null. When I click the first one, the first one's... Okay, at least they're highlighting now. Square, state. Obviously the state's not null. Bro. Come on. Okay, I can't change state like that. That's fine. Okay, great. Okay, things are starting to behave as expected. Stop doing that. Why is it doing that? Chaos. Okay, great. I'm actually going to throw a fit. Should I add it? Go away. Can I turn LastPass off on a particular tab? Okay, we can check out the state. That's very good to know. Very good to know. Oh, use the selector. Mode selector. We're moving on. I don't like DevTools. Completing the game. Great. Go away, DevTools. I don't like you. Is it going to do this all day? What changed? Who hurt you? App. Completing the game. Where are we in the context of our tutorial? Nowhere near the end. We're picking this up next week. Hi, Praying Daily. Good to see you. By this point, you have all the basic building blocks for your tic-tac-toe game. To have a complete game, you need to alternate X's and O's, and you need a winner. Okay, we're talking about minimum viable tic-tac-toe. We're talking test-driven development. Can we do these basic things? What are the requirements of our app? It's good to have you, even though you're late, Praying Daily. Beam says, GitHub. Humana. Beam, could you post that in Code Along with Derek channel? For some reason, I cannot click the links here. When I try to click that, it just displays it on stream. We're teaching young minds every day. We're also teaching old minds. Think about that. Tomed. Oh, sick. Okay, let's make a commit. Oh, did you? Okay. Dude, you're so good, Beam. After you are made. So now what? Reference in a new issue. Is it appropriate to call it an issue, or should I where is this? It's all one page. Are there open pull requests? I want to open a pull request. Can somebody walk me through this? Do you know how sick it would be to contribute to this code base? Okay. Here, let's check this out. Okay. Beam, this is working. If it gets sufficiently complex, I'm just going to have you come in studio and walk me through it verbally. We're going to start at the beginning. Convince myself we're at the beginning. Correct. It highlighted the line. Great. We're going to fork the repository. We're going to go fork. We're going to go fork. Great. We're going to go GitHub Desktop. Nope. We're going to go CodeSpace. What's the one where you're doing the in-browser VS Code so I don't have to pull this onto my machine? You know what I mean? What's the fastest way to make that change? This is actually super useful. I need to know how to do this. I want to make a change to line 808 of tutorial tic-tac-toe.markdown in beta source content learn. Okay. I happen to have this fancy extension, beta source content learn tic-tac-toe. Great. So this is in my fork. Edit. Hell yes. Hell yes. Very easy. Okay. And what was the line called? Oh, it was line 808, of course. Okay. After you or after you have made? Do they ever say you've? Yes, they say you've, so it's okay for me to say you've over on line 808. I love this detour. After you've. Okay, so I made a change up at the top. Okay. Commit. Oh, here we go. Uh-huh. This one? Is this nomenclature fine? Or might I be more verbose and say something like tic-tac-toe typo patch? To make it easier for the team to know what I'm doing. Aha! Okay, we're back in the main, back on the code base. Contributing. I didn't know things like that existed. Thank you for pointing us. Lovely, lovely, lovely. Great. That's all fine. Great. Okay. That's all fine. Sure. Great. That's all they have to say about it. It's very small. Like I can imagine somebody going through all these and okay, thank you for checking out the other PRs. It doesn't look like I'm done yet. Do I click create pull request and that's when I'm done? I'm going to click that. Okay. Yep. Okay. I don't know about labels. I'm just going to do it. I'm going to do it naively. Everything's going to be fine. I'm going to check what kind of labels they use. Labels. Feedback. Type improvement? Type documentation? I like type documentation. Type typos. Hello. Type typos. If I have the same name as their system, will it type :space typos? You know what I mean? Like if I do this, will it do that? Fuck. Does not look the same as theirs. Why? Oh, right. Okay, here we go. Boom. Oh. So what do I have? I just have the generic ones. Super weird. So when we fork it, we don't inherit. It's just like, if it doesn't do that, then how do you do it, right? Like those exist to be used. I guess I'll go for documentation, and then I'll add a new one called type typos. Good enough. Great. We're going for it. I'm confused. Am I only doing it on my fork? Into main. Whose main? My main. Dang it. Merge. Confirm merge. But then how do I... Oh, okay. Is there a way to revert and then do it to... Is this where I would do it to their repo? Compare cross forks. Hello? From my revert to their... Let me check if it's here. It is. Okay. Okay. Ah, and this is where it would have opened contributing. That's cool. But now it's the revert, which looks ugly. You know what I mean? Can I do patch? Yes, great. I want to merge patch to their main. I don't know what kind of system they have. Like, you know, I don't. It's okay that I don't. I'm going to try. Right. And this is where I would like to do the labels. Only those with write access. Okay, great. Oh, now it's doing CI/CD. Hilarious and fun. I just want labels. I cannot. Oh, it's automatically doing labels. Oh, it's a little bot. Oh, I have to sign a contributor license agreement. Uh-huh. Wow, lovely. Okay, interesting. Hilarious. I'm fully doxxed, so I can do this process in public. I am Derek Coleman. Sounds good. Great. Just take my soul, Web 2, sounds good. Praise our overlords, the whole thing. Could he be any more doxxed? Great. Fuck. Uh-huh. That's fine. It's public anyway. This does not feel good. Great. Lovely. I'm done. Great. And it looks like I'm automatically going to get a tag. Specifically, the pull request will get this tag in an hour. Check that out later. Great. Back where we were. So I'm going to zoom out a little bit and get a context of where we are. We are at completing the game, which is about halfway. How long is completing the game? Lifting state up. Where's lifting state up? Oh, immediate. Overview. So we just finished overview and we're entering the section completing the game, which has these 4 subsections before time travel, which has those 7 subsections. Well, the end of a section is a very natural place to stop, isn't it? So here's my question. I need to create a sandbox account. to save my progress. This we can do over in Code Along with Derek. Leave a little message. Front end. Great. Lovely. Okay. We did it, folks. What did we do? What was the it? We started our tic-tac-toe tutorial and got familiar with our code base and with our code editor, understood, sorry for my screen size, understood what we're working with when we started, and then made a bunch of tweaks to app.js to turn our one square component into a board component that brings in 9 square components, and we give them the class name square to style what's inside the square and the square itself, and then the class name board row to make them new lines. Then we added some logic using the power of JSX to handle clicks with the onClick property. We also, instead of explicitly writing what was in each component, used the useState hook to keep track of the value of each square and made it so that when we do the click, it sets value to X. Pretty good. Up next, which is to say next week, we are going to figure out how to have it switch between X's and O's and then correctly identify when there is a winner when any of the winning arrangements on the board is true. And also probably make it so you can't click the same one if it's already been clicked. That'd be a good cheat. Okay. Thank you all. Thank you all for joining, for sticking in. This has been a joy and a pleasure. This is Front End Wednesdays. I will close by making you aware of other opportunities to stay engaged. If you're not already at discord.gg/SporkDAO, get in there, silly. That is where the majority of conversation's happening. For example, where I got rugged by OpenSea and am begging one of the other Bufficorn whales to give me my rarest Bufficorn back because I was trying to set it for sale, and then the signature that popped up was actually accept current offer, not set for sale at price. And because I was going too fast, I didn't realize that and sold my rarest Bufficorn for an absurdly low amount. And now I'm sad. So I'm begging him privately and publicly to give it back, please. And my framing is, let's resolve this at layer 0. Wish me luck. The Discord is also where there are events. There are events in the Discord so that you can keep track of what's happening each week. Up next, we have Design Thursdays tomorrow, the community call on Friday, and then on Tuesday, a week from now, I'm speaking with steward Russell Castagnaro about Bufficorn Ventures and how ETHDenver and SporkDAO invest in projects. Highly encourage you to come to any of those that interest you. You can say you're interested in the Discord server by clicking interested on the events. If you're not a Discorder, twitter.com/Ethereum Denver. And most importantly, my little baby, my little pet project is our public calendar that you can access at that link. Probably it's blasphemy to have the URL there have time zone Los Angeles instead of time zone Mountain Time, but what do I know? Don't tell anyone. That is an up-to-date account of all the fun things we are doing each week. So I recommend you add it to your calendar of choice and reference it each day to see if you want to play along. I would love feedback, a quick little bit of feedback. This format, is it working pretty well? In other words, Derek, keep going, keep doing this? Because if you're the only people here and you do not like the format, whew, I am doing the wrong thing. Okay, thank you, Timed. Appreciate you. Also could go faster. Front end could just be like me talking to different front end developers and just letting them talk about like getting hired and what it's like at the work culture of different like Web3 and Web2 organizations. That would be a completely different use of this time. I wanted to dig in because my intention is to create a space where we can learn how to build things step by step by step. Wait a minute, the Monday smart contract thing isn't on the events. Beam, don't we do that on Mondays? Don't we do that on Mondays? We did it on Monday last week. We did not do it this week because New Year's. Oh, dang it. I'm recording a bunch of stuff. Smart contracts, Beamed. What time works for you on Monday? Is the answer 5 p.m. Pacific? Is it maybe earlier? It's probably earlier. How about 11 a.m. Pacific? First of all, Beamed, are you here? I combined Beam Me Up Now and timed and said Beamed. That's funny. I want to keep doing those every Monday, but Beam Me Up Now has been the most consistent participant, so I defer to his preference. We'll sync in the Discord. You're hitting me with the let's chat offline. I see how it is. Yeah, drop me some times that work for you. Ideally for me, somewhere between 11 to 2 Pacific, which I know is not the time zone you're in. 11 to 2 Pacific. I'm not going to dox you, but I know. I'm just trying to translate. 11 to 2 Pacific is my window. So if you've got any of that sweet midday available, late afternoon or whatever, let me know. Ping me, please. In the meantime, I'll see you tomorrow at Design Thursdays, same place, same time, here on Twitch and YouTube from 3 to 5 Mountain, and at the community call every Friday. Happy New Year, everyone. Until next time, go be the Buffcorn. Timed, I appreciate you. Bye, everyone. Oh, Merman, thanks for being here. It was a pleasure. Merman, could you introduce yourself in the Discord so I can learn a little bit more about you? We have an introductions channel in the general category. I would love to know who you are. I'm going to search. Do you use the same name on Discord? Merman. You do? Oh, you haven't said anything yet. Welcome. Go say things. I want to learn what things you have to say. Starting with your introduction over in the introductions channel. Yes, it is a little different. That's right. Bye Beam, bye Merman, bye Praying Daily, bye mysterious fourth person who's watching.